Hey guys, we're gonna try something new today. I'm gonna try to get more into the vlogging mode and just sort of talking about stuff, a little less prepared, a little more off the cuff. Today I'm gonna talk about the new Superman trailer, the James Gunn Superman movie. Everybody's talking about it. It's one of the most watched DC trailers of all time, if not the most, last I heard. And it's setting the internet on fire. Everybody's going crypto crazy, and I got a lot to say about that. I'm going to save that for a little later because I have some things that they're not spoilers. I got accused of being a spoiler by posting my theories about crypto. And so here's fair warning. I have some theories based on my knowledge of Superman comics and crypto appearances in the past that might be a little bit disturbing, and a lot of people are in denial about it. I'm going to save that for a little later in this video. Let's just start with the initial reaction. Thumbs up or thumbs down? Definitely a thumbs up. I'm a big Gunn fan. I enjoyed Guardians of the Galaxy, at least the first two. You know, fun, just enjoyable popcorn superhero movies, and he proved that you could take lesser known, I mean, not even second string characters, third string, if that, in case of the Guardians, and turn them into top tier movies based on his formula, right? The Gunn formula. And he did the same thing with the Peacemaker series, which is what really made me a believer. Gunn, the heart of any Gunn project that I've seen has been emotion, right? Emotion, raw emotion. Oftentimes sadness mixed with joy, right? Punctuated with joy, but moments of intense sadness. Just think about Guardians of the Galaxy and Quill's loss and longing for his mom, the death of Groot, spoiler alert, and his eventual return though. So think about those. I think about those things. And think about Peacemaker, which was really a game changer for me because it was funny yet poignant, and it had sad moments. Very interesting look at very flawed, difficult characters. I think Gunn is a genius, and that's what made me, and probably what made the folks at Warner Brothers say Gunn is the guy we need to take Superman to the next level. Clearly, the Zack Snyder approach, it worked for a lot of people. A lot of people love Man of Steel and love the Snyder cut of the Justice League. I'm not really among those. I mean, I thought that the effects and the look on Superman, Man of Steel, were impressive, really cool. The way Snyder knows how to shoot action. We know that. Like, he can do that. Did he really get the character? I feel like he didn't. I feel like Man of Steel tried to take Superman in that ultimate badass Superman direction, which is not what Superman is, right? Superman's not the ultimate badass. A lot of people complain that the new guy playing Superman, I forgot his name already, Corn Sweat, something like that, not jacked enough like Cavill. I mean, Cavill's like practically Dan Shaheen size. He's so buffed, right? But if you think about it, Superman doesn't need to be, nor should he be, extremely muscular. It doesn't make a ton of sense. Like, he doesn't need to be, because he's solar powered. He's got alien cells. They don't need to be gigantic to give him the strength that he has. And in fact, being as jacked as that would probably make it a lot harder to conceal his secret identity. So if you think like I do that one of the reasons Clark Kent could be believable as Superman is that the Superman physique itself is not super jacked bodybuilder style. I think that makes sense. But, visually, everybody likes to see big muscles, tight costumes. So that brings me to the only negative I think that I can see so far in that Gunn trailer to me, is the Superman costume has missed the mark a little bit. There's a lot of like tailoring, shoulder pads, kind of bulky and not skin tight. I mean, I'm not contradicting myself. I'm trying not to contradict myself here, but like Superman's costume should not seem like armor. It's not there to protect him because he doesn't need to be protected. That's the point. It's delicate. It's sheer, right? Because it doesn't matter. The man underneath is made out of steel. So apart from that, my biggest gripe with most superhero costumes, including for especially the Man of Steel Superman costume, suffered from the same problems that I saw with going all the way back to Spider-Man's costume in Spider-Man 1. The costume designers get so excited about designing this visually amazing costume that they don't consider the costume's origins from the comic. So, Peter Parker sewed his own costume in the comics, right? That's how he made it. What he ended up wearing and what Superman wore in Man of Steel has like, micro indentations of their logos and stuff in them. And they're made in a way that no single person could possibly make them. Like Superman's mom could not have made the costume he wore in Man of Steel. I don't remember if they talked about the origins of the costume in Man of Steel or not. But wherever he got it from, where are you going to get this unique, one-of-a-kind, bespoke, caped costume that you're going to wear and try to protect your secret identity? It just doesn't make a ton of sense to me, but I get it. We want things to look good in the movies. So that's a minor quibble, right? The gun Superman costume, to me, it misses the mark a little bit. I chalked it up in the early sightings of it from photos and stuff. I was like, well, they do a lot of costume replacement these days in superhero movies. Like in the Marvel movies, some of the people are not, all of their clothing are completely replaced by CGI. So I thought, well, maybe they're making something where it's comfortable and looks close, and then they'll make changes in CGI perhaps and make it a little more streamlined. They didn't go in that direction. So overly tailored, overly worked, doesn't make sense. Then again, I wouldn't put it past Gunn to have a really good reason for that, since it's so tailored and so custom, and perhaps they're going to have an origin for the costume that actually makes sense. But we'll see about that. Costume, I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt for now because everything else looked so amazing. The look overall looks great. The look of Kansas and Smallville, I thought was really cool. They didn't go for like a farmhouse look. They went for like a more like grounded, realistic farm, like modern, poor farm, not a fancy farmhouse or whatever. Good stuff. Rooting Superman firmly as like a middle class, working class upbringing. Super important. That's core to who Superman is. That is what made Superman. Krypton is incidental. It was his upbringing and his parents in Kansas that make him the man that he is. The man we all admire, the man we love, the Man of Steel. So I like what he's doing with the origins. They didn't get like a movie star to play his dad from what I saw. It was a really just like a schlubby looking dude. Perfecto. What else did we see? So much, man. They tipped a lot of things off. We got to see Luthor. We got to see and his company, for some reason they're calling it Luthor Corp instead of Lex Corp, which who cares? Not a big deal. I kind of just Lex Corp sounds better. But in all reality, most people probably wouldn't name their company after their first name, so whatever. He definitely had the look of Luthor really reminded me of Superman, All-Star Superman by Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely. Like the look of that guy, he just has that look of the skinny, crazy smart, crazy evil Lex Luthor. In my heart of hearts, my favorite Lex Luthor of all time, nobody has even touched it so far, was Gene Hackman. I mean, not only being a great actor that Gene Hackman is, even though he hated that part, he hated those movies, he brought such a star quality. He was the star quality in the Dawn or Superman movie, right? Like, nobody knew Christopher Reeves, but they knew who Lex Luthor was. Some people complain that he was played in sort of a comic-y way with Otis and Miss Tessmacher and him being sort of goofy. But man, when it came down to that scene where they've got the kryptonite chained around Superman and he reveals his plan that he's a mass murderer and he has no qualms about it. He's doing it for money. It's chilling. Lex Luthor in the Dawn or Superman movies, Gene Hackman, all-time favorite. Nobody else has even touched it, in my opinion, in any of the films that have come. Most of them are doing an impression of Hackman in some ways. Kevin Spacey was. Others have tried to bring some other things to the Luthor character where they go straight into that businessman mode for Luthor, which really is the modern take on Lex Luthor, brought to us by John Byrne in the Man of Steel miniseries back in the 80s. That was where I really got into Superman, where John Byrne drastically depowered Superman, brought him way away from what he was, which was a god who could move planets and all the things that the Silver Age Superman could do, and tried to ground him in reality. Made him a yuppie. Made him kind of a good-looking dude as Clark Kent, too. Was all things from the John Byrne Superman. And turned Lex Luthor, though, into a businessman. Before that, there were a couple of modes for Lex Luthor, right? He started out as like the classic mad scientist mode. Later on, he went into a period, the prison Gray's Luthor period, where he would just like wear his prison uniform. He was kind of just like a genius, still a mad scientist, but like a criminal mad scientist. And then they upped the ante into the 70s, and we got the purple and green power armor Luthor, where he's just trying to take it to that next level where he could be toe-to-toe like a physical threat to Superman as well. All those are fun aspects of Lex Luthor. But John Byrne's Luthor stuck, right? That's the Lex Luthor we think of today because it's so salient to our times to have a billionaire supervillain, right? I mean, we've got him in real life, and he was perfect for the 1980s, right? He was like a 1980s style businessman, flawed, egotistical, and flawed in that way. That was his biggest flaw. In fact, he gave himself cancer because he wanted to wear kryptonite on a ring, and to sort of keep Superman at bay, and just to be a show off, really. And it ended up giving him cancer, and he lost his hand. Love John Byrne Luthor. So we don't know anything about this new Luthor at all, except that he is clearly in the businessman mode of Luthor. I hope there's a nod to some of the mad scientist aspects. Now, are there other villains besides Luthor? Because we get Lex Luthor in every Superman movie. I get it. He's his arch enemy. He's the other side of the coin, whatever. And I actually think he's the perfect foil for Superman, because you don't want super muscle guy to be the villain. The villain should be utterly human and should be able to use his mind and his brain to combat Superman, which is perfect. Like, that's why what I think is so awesome about the Lex Luthor Superman kind of relationship. It can go in a lot of directions. Anyway, who are they going to bring in this movie? I got a couple of theories. One, we've been talking about Brainiac forever. Lex Luthor, Brainiac team up is a classic of the Silver Age comics, and is something we have yet to see in the movies. So it would be nice to see some Brainiac. Could be that they just haven't revealed that yet. There was a shot of what I thought could have been Brainiac, but it looks like it's actually Metamorpho. We'll talk about that in just a sec. So other possible villains. I have theories. So we saw one shot of a guy in all black with like a U, right? And that's gives us a good reason to believe he could be bringing in the Mirror Universe Ultraman, right? He's the Superman from an alternate reality who's an evil Superman. And actually in the comics has quite a few really weird differences in the sense that that Superman actually gains strength from kryptonite. Ultraman does. So really interesting kind of flip bizarro version of Superman, if you will. That's the other speculation, is that perhaps is a clone of Superman who will end up being Bizarro. Another thing from the 80s, John Byrne's Superman. You know, Bizarro made a sort of one-time appearance in those early comics, and he was just a failed clone attempt by Luthor. So the fact that they got the mask on him makes me feel like that's a good chance for a reveal and a Bizarro. And Bizarro just seems right out of the gun playbook as well. But man, so many possibilities and toys to play with. It's intriguing and exciting. The other one that I've got that I haven't heard anybody say yet is I seem to remember Gunn had spoken about his favorite Superman villains in the past, and among them might have been Parasite, who's a natural, great Superman villain who can drain power from Superman into himself. This is my theory. This could be totally wrong, but that giant fire-breathing kaiju monster thing that Superman's fighting could very well be a late-stage Parasite. It's possible. I'm not saying it is, but then again, as a good buddy of mine said, sometimes a kaiju is just a kaiju. Maybe it doesn't have to be a specific Superman-related villain. That would be cool too. All right, let's talk a little bit more. We're still haven't got to what I really want to talk about, which is Krypto. But first, let's talk about real quickly the other hero appearances we saw. I mentioned Metamorpho. We also saw Hawk Girl, Mr. Terrific, and of course, Guy Gardner, Green Lantern. That really surprised me. When I heard that Nathan Fillion was going to be in this movie and was going to be playing Green Lantern, I automatically assumed that it would be Hal Jordan. Because, I mean, Fillion's even got that Hal Jordan look, kind of. A little old for him, maybe, but it definitely would have been, would not have surprised anyone and probably would have delighted many, many people. But man, who you delighted with Guy Gardner, with a bowl haircut, no less. You delighted guys like me. Like, you have to be as old as me to have read Justice League, the Guy Gardner and Batman Justice League era from the late 80s, right? The Kevin Maguire drawn Justice League, which was honestly more of a comedy book. It was more of a humor book than it was a superhero book. It had great moments of superhero action, particularly some of the early issues and some of the Justice League International issues drawn by Bart Sears that featured more alternate reality villains. Back in that series, they actually brought in analogs of all the Marvel villains. So we saw the JLI fighting analogs of Doctor Doom and Dr. Octopus and Sabretooth and Dormammu and like Marvel villains that they sort of like translated. It was awesome. I don't know if we're going to go that far, but then again, it wouldn't surprise me either. Multiverse is so in vogue that we've got reasons to believe it could be used here. Okay, so what else? We saw Hawk Girl, which I don't have much to say other than, okay, looked like Hawk Girl. Metamorpho, we got so little of. Got a little taste of Mr. Terrific, who, you know, was the modern age Mr. Terrific, who's a redo of, that's a very golden age character, Mr. Terrific. Fair play written on his shirt and stuff. And they sort of did the revamp. Maybe it was James Robinson who created the new Mr. Terrific, who's African-American. He wears a big T on his face. Don't call him Mr. T, though. Pity the fool that calls Mr. Terrific Mr. T. And he's got these weird drone balls and stuff. Like, they pulled it off. It, like, no doubt, very comic accurate what I saw in the movie so far. So I have hopes, but it was a little weird to see the Justice League there. So what is that deal? How is the Justice League already existing? What is going on? Are we going to see a Maxwell Lord? If you're familiar with the JLA of that era, then you'll know what I'm talking about. If not, maybe we'll find out. All of those things make me really happy to hear, because I think they could be handled extremely well in Gunn's hands. And it might have been a little cringy to think about like going in a humorous direction, but we know Gunn can pull it off. Like, he's got the chops to pull off the action and the humor and the pathos. So let's talk about Krypto, right? Krypto is the star of this trailer. I mean, he's from that's what the trailer is about. It's to tell you Krypto is in this movie, and ain't he cute? Oh man, he is. He's not comic accurate. He's a little more wire-haired. I believe Krypto is usually a short-haired breed, but who cares? He's a white dog with superpowers, right? We didn't see him fly, which is a little weird. It seemed like he was running. So we don't know. Like, what are the origins of Krypto in this comic? How do we get a Krypto and a Superman in the same place? To me, what makes a lot of sense is maybe Jor-El had a rocket he sent ahead of time, maybe testing the rocket before he put his infant son in it, and you put a dog like the Russians did with Laika, right? So tests dog sent to Earth, looking good, planet's getting destroyed. Okay, let's send our kid. Let's send our kid now. There's the logic behind that will fly. It's what they do with it now that will be very interesting, because the very first thing I thought of, was, where do we see them? They're in the Arctic. He's saving Superman in the Arctic, who obviously just got punched or attacked or hit somehow. And he asks him to take him home. Where's he taking him home to? Not to Smallville. Most likely, the Fortress of Solitude. So and we saw a dead robot with Superman over the dead robot, or some kind of hurt, damaged robot, which could be Kellex, the super Kryptonian robot that runs the Fortress of Solitude. So something big is going to go down in the fortress. That immediately made me think of what is one of my all-time favorite Superman stories. The only one that I know of, no, not the only one. One of the few Superman stories written by the great Alan Moore, called Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow. And this was not just any Superman story. This was the last Silver Age Superman story. So when I talked about the John Byrne reboot of Superman and the Crisis of Infinite Earths that sort of reset the entire DC universe back in the 80s, that's what I'm talking about. So let's talk what happened in that story. I don't want to give it all away, but it's meant to be like a loving farewell to Superman, but that includes sort of a greatest hits of his villains. Of course, Luthor's there. Of course, Brainiac's there. Toyman, Kryptonite Man is there, and others. And it's a great story. It's a really visceral and kind of violent story. A lot of people die. A lot of people get hurt. We bring back a lot of things from the Silver Age comics to sort of like to remember them, including, things like Jimmy Olsen would drink and Lois Lane would bathe in this magical bath in the Fortress of Solitude and come out with superpowers and all kinds of crazy stuff. But it included one moment that I'll never forget. And it's a hugely pathos-inducing moment when the Kryptonite Man has come to kill Superman. And Krypto is there to protect him. And Krypto goes berserk. And you see Krypto growl and get mean for the first time because he's safe to protect Superman's life. And he attacks Kryptonite Man, and Kryptonite Man says, "What are you doing? You're dying, you're killing yourself, but you're also killing me." Krypto kills kills the Kryptonite man, rips his throat out, and then turns green as he dies of kryptonite poisoning and lets out a sickening death howl. This is a chilling, dark, pathos-inducing moment that to me is a James Gunn moment, right? So if we don't see that in this first movie, I think it's inevitable we will see it in an upcoming movie. From what I've heard, this movie was designed to be like a one and done. Essentially, it's not designed to like have to set up a sequel. There's not going to be a cliffhanger ending from what I've heard, which leads me to believe if you're gonna do this, if you're gonna pull an old Yeller on Krypto, it's gonna happen in this movie, and it's gonna be sad. Why else do you front load the first trailer for this film with an amazing Krypto moment where he saves Superman? Why would you do this? My wife always criticizes me because I try to telegraph plots based on like how I would write a story or classic storytelling techniques or whatever. A lot of the time I'm wrong. So take this with a humongous grain of salt. But I really think you set that up early in the minds of people to get them emotionally, even more emotionally invested in Krypto. The reason being that it will be an even huger rug pull. not to get into a Krypto pun here, but it will be an even bigger emotional impact if he dies sacrificing himself to save Superman. How amazing would that be? I hope it doesn't happen, but if it's because you don't want to see a puppy die on TV in the movies, but if it does happen, there's nobody that's going to be able to pull that off better than James Gunn, and it'll turn Superman into it'll be a sort of a John Wick scenario with a dead dog, and I just think that's the kind of thing that Gunn is known for and that he does. I think that we're in for a lot of heartstrings being pulled. We already saw it. This movie is about emotions and bringing strong emotions to the table. This is what people are responding to. And you can't just spill all of that in your first trailer, right? I mean, if the trailer spills this much emotion, how much is being hidden for that secret emotional impact moment? Anyway, thanks for tuning in, checking out my new format for videos. I'm going to try a few more of these because this actually ended up being way more fun than I expected it to be. I don't think I'm going to have to edit this thing at all. I think I'm going to put it up, put it on. I hope that you watch it. I hope if you like it, you'll click thumbs up. If you're not already, consider clicking on that subscribe button. Maybe hit that bell. Subscribe to everything that I put out because I'm going to try and start putting this stuff out on a much more regular basis. I don't want to promise daily yet, but this was so much fun that maybe I can. So I'll try to do one tomorrow. Thanks for checking this out. I really appreciate it, and I'll talk to you soon.